As you're probably aware, on the 20th of August, Mr Neville came out and made an announcement that we're doing a review of the Goulburn Murray trade limit. That's primarily what I'll be talking about today, but also some of the other work which we've recently published through consultants, which consultants Aether have prepared for us, is on the future availability, especially in the Murray below the choke. So to start the presentation, I thought it'd be best to explain what are trade limits and what's inter-valley transfers mean. So this schematic here is on our webpage. It's a live schematic, so what it shows you is where those, for want of a better term, boats are, is where the actual trade limits occur. So wherever you've got a red boat, such as in the Goulburn and Murray here, that trade limit is closed. Where you've got green boats, you can trade water through that. So in this circumstance, you can trade water from 7 back up into the Goulburn, or from 7 you can go either way to South Australia, and there's no actual constraint on the limit between South Australia and Victoria at that point there. There's no limit going into New South Wales, but there's a 200 meg limit coming back into Victoria. So when I say limits, those limits are made up of various what we call components, and those components are things such as how much water is being traded in and out of each valley, how much water is being tagged used in and out of each valley. A tagged use is where someone has, we'll take the Goulburn and Murray as an example, is where they have the allocation sitting in the Goulburn system, but they're actually using it in the Murray system. So that, in those circumstances, that usage comes off that trade limit. The other things that come off that limit are allocations associated with entitlements which were previously in the Goulburn but are now in the Murray. So we call them legacy entitlements. So there's about 100 GL of those as well. So when we get a seasonal termination of 100%, there's 100 GL of allocation which goes against that trade limit to supply those entitlements which were originally in the Goulburn. So they're the three main components which influence the limit going up and down. The other one is releases made by the river operator, and that's when the MDBA will call water out of the Goulburn. So like last year when we had those high flows during summer, that was water being called out by the NDBA through the Goulburn to supply the Murray. So that's a very quick explanation of the limits. In particular, the Goulburn limit, how it operates is that it has a 200, it starts off each year with 200 GL available. However, you may not start the season with 200. It depends what the previous year finished at. So if we finished the previous year at negative 200, so to be negative 200 means that we've had all this use through those legacy accounts, so 100 GL on those legacy accounts, and what had tag use coming out through the Goulburn and Murray as well. So if we're at negative 200, we'll open the season at 0, or anything less than that, or above 0, you'll have the limit open to start with. And then as the year goes on, it goes up and down depending on how much trade occurs, those legacy trades on the seasonal termination, how much water gets released. So it's complex to understand and to keep an eye on, but they are the parts that influence the Goulburn Murray trade limit. So inter-valley limits also apply to the Murrumbidgee, so that's why at times the Murrumbidgee will be open and closed. It's presently closed. You also have limits on New South Wales Murray, Lower Darling and South Australia. As I said, what the IVT does is just aggregate up all the credits and debits from one system, between one system and the other. We've already mentioned about the Goulburn the Murray trade limit, and the amount owed to the Murray can be reduced through people trading back into the Goulburn from the Murray, which at the moment doesn't occur a lot. That's understandable with the difference in price. Tag use within the Goulburn of Murray allocations, we don't see a lot of that happening. It's more the other way. And delivery of water to the Murray as payback for what's been borrowed. Okay, so traditionally, a lot of water is being supplied from the Murrumbidgee as well as the Goulburn. On average, it's been about 60 GL, which has been delivered from the Goulburn. And as you can see, over time, it's fairly balanced between what's been coming out of the Bidgie and what's been coming out of the Goulburn. However, in the last 2 years, with New South Wales being on 0 allocations, or lower allocations, we've seen that high reliance on the Goulburn to supply water to the Murray, and that's why we've seen the increase in use of the Goulburn IVT. So in 17-18, it was 320 GL was delivered from the Goulburn, and last year it was 430 GL, which was delivered from the Goulburn. So there are significant increases on that average of 60 GL, which we had prior to that. So in terms of the actual trade rule itself, what we've seen over time is that it's generally remained, on average, fairly nets out over time. It's generally been about even. Some years it's been net trade into the Goulburn. Some years it's been net trade out to the Murray. But generally up to the previous 2 years, it was swinging about from year to year. But what we've seen in the last 2 years, with that lack of access of allocation from other sources, it's been a high reliance on the Goulburn to supply Murray use. So as you can see, in 17-18 it was about 250 GL in total, which came out of the Goulburn, and the year before that was, I think, it's about 230 GL. Of that, in 17-18, I think it was about 43% was coming out of tagged accounts, and the previous year, and then last year was about 33%, which came out of tagged accounts.
Didn't your last slide just say 400,000, not 250?
That's how much was delivered. This is the actual net trade. So this is how much in net was traded, and that was actually how much water was delivered.
Okay. Yep. Sorry.
That's all right. This stuff isn't easy to understand, so there's numbers all over the place.
That's because there was, there still is, everyone's moved out of the Goulburn into the by having tagged accounts, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's
the last 2 years it's gone like that.
Yeah, because the main use of tagged accounts is this area, Torrumbarry, and also the Murray Valley. They are used to an extent in the Lower Murray, but not to the same extent, and that's purely because Lower Murray Water have discouraged the use of tagged accounts.
So when the minister stops it in 2 months' time, what's the level at now?
What's that?
When the minister puts
so that's in start of December. In December, a tagged account will have to apply with the trade limit,
which is minus 36.
Yeah, it's minus 40 at the moment. Yep. So until that gets back to 0, those tagged accounts won't be able to be used. So yes, it's to bring those tagged accounts in line with the allocation trade. So this is what happened last year. What we've known about that the potential for a higher river to occur during summer because of these demands, but as you saw in that previous graph, we haven't actually experienced it until the last 2 years. So what this graph is illustrating is that the natural kind of flow for the Goulburn is to have that higher winter and spring flows, and have the lower flows during your summer and autumn period. And in the last 12 months, we've seen those higher flows for that extended period through that summer and early autumn period, mainly to meet supply demands for the Murray, and that's partly because they can't source water from anywhere else. So that's why the levers that they've usually been able to pull in terms of pulling water, having water in storage in Lake Victoria, also being able to pull it from Menindee and the Murrumbidgee, they've all dried up. And so the levers that they can pull, be able to source water and even it out, has been constrained. So out of the announcement, there's to be interim interim operational regime put in place for this year. What they'll mean is that we won't see as high IVT flows during summer, so there's going to be less of those environmental flows coming through, not environmental flows, less of those IVT flows coming through this year. Therefore, it'll mean that the opportunity, if the limit does open, now that's subject to what happens between now and December with those tagged accounts, and also how much additional allocation gets assigned to those legacy entitlements. But that will influence how much further into the negative the limit goes. And the only way it will come back is by releases to supply the Murray. And at this stage, we're not too sure what will happen there. The MDBA will come out with a revised river operations in the next couple of weeks or a month or so, and that may give some insight on when they're thinking of releasing water this season. But yeah, when and if it does open, it's probably going to be similar to last year in terms of when we made announcements on Wednesdays and Fridays, it was very quickly taken up. And as I've said, at times we noticed that it's been taken up within about 2 or 3 minutes. So it was very competitive. Pretty much brokers or individuals were sitting with their My Water account and pushing the go button, the go button, go button, hoping that they'll get theirs through. And those trades were a mixture of people just trying to move water between their accounts in the Goulburn and the Murray, but also commercial trades going through as well. So there was lots of different things going on in there. But it was very competitive, and if we do get it open, people will naturally be trying to get as much water out as they can, and we will see the same competition again.
$300 difference.
Oh, we're $210 at the moment, or whatever it is, yeah. Especially if that keeps up. So, and then from December, tagged accounts will be in line with the trade rule, and come January we'll start doing consultation on the long-term revision of the rule, but also that'll involve consultation on how the goal will be operated in terms of environmental aspects and the operational rules, but also the trade rule itself. So that's pretty much reading again the same thing. We'll work with Mark Bailey's and Andrew Shields in terms of river operations to document actions to put in place how the river will be operated this year, but also going forward how the river will be operated long term. And working to identify improvements to the trading rules to better protect the environment and third parties. And as we said in the previous slide, undertake broader consultation early next year. So the other aspect is the amount of development which has been having below the choke. So this charts how the report prepared for us by AETHA. What it's saying is that in terms of below the choke, there's about, and as Craig mentioned, there's about 1,200 to 1,250 GL of use for hort at the moment. It's anticipated to increase to about 1,400. It may exceed that, but at this stage that's the expectation. That's about 1,400 GL. So what this is saying that below the choke, without bringing any additional water in a dry year, the available allocation would be used, if possible, if everyone were willing to sell us to hort, all that available allocation could be used by hort. And in an extreme dry year, the amount of available water, the amount of demand from hort would exceed the available water in a dry year. So there's definitely going to be significant pressures on if we keep this dry happening.
Have you told the horticulture fellows this?
They're aware of it, and that's why, 2 months ago they came out with an announcement saying they're encouraging governments to stop, not to approve any more development. And that's why Mr Neville came out, it's probably 2 months ago, in relation to reviewing on extraction shares in the Victorian Murray as well. So there's work going on about it, and there has been a lot of investors now apparently reconsidering what their options, and probably ones that have been approved, but also people who are going through the approval process considering what their options are in terms of looking at this. And that really reflects what Craig was saying earlier as well. There's a number of the issues that they do have, as Craig mentioned, is a number of them majority probably don't hold enough entitlement for what they use, so they're highly reliant on allocation trade and other products to secure their water as well. And this is just kind of an insight on where they're sourcing their water from. So over the last 6 or 7 years, you can say usage has bounced around in below the choke at around that 850 to about 950 mark. And to make up that shortfall and what's been available within Zone 7, they've been net importing between about, well, below the choke, there's been net importing of allocation of about that 225, 230 GL over the last 5 or 6 years. Primarily before the last 2 years, they were sourcing people were sourcing that water from wherever they could find it cheapest and where it was available. So depending on the year, it was coming from either the Bidgie or SA or both the choke or New South Wales, Murray, wherever people could source it for the cheapest, logical. But in the last 2 years, with all those options becoming limited, they've sourced most of their water from the Goulburn, and that's reflected in all those other charts showing how much water allocation's been coming out of the Goulburn. So the last 2 years, they've been sourcing as much water as they possibly can from the Goulburn, and leading into this year, with that now being fairly much closed off, there's going to be, I suppose, increased competition to access whatever water they can from the other sources. So roughly, they're probably, at the moment, last year was about 850 GL of use below the choke. If you look at about a 56% allocation on a dry estimate, it's probably around 250 GL short compared to last year's use. So if we were to match 850 use last year with a 56% allocation announcement for this year, there's about 250 GL shortage for Zone 7 this year. So that could be sourced from other places such as the Murray, but there's limited allocations in those areas. So the only other aspect is just to reiterate that there is this schematic on our webpage. It is live, so when there are opportunities to trade water between various valleys, that's including the Barmah Choke. So you can use this schematic to tell you exactly when the limits are open and closed, and be aware of how they operate. So it serves two purposes, in terms of probably more as an education tool, so you can be aware of where you can source water from, but also when you can source it from. Because in addition to just them being colours, you can actually click on those boats and it'll tell you what the actual limit is right now. And you can also look into what's happened with that limit over the last 12 months. And if you're really into your limits, you can also see the components and see which things are driving that limit to the way it's been driven. The other tool we've recently released is an app. It provides information on what the seasonal termination is, what the trade limits are, so it has all the limits on it, so you can set that up with a push notification, whatever you like on it. You can find information on trade prices, however it's based on the 7-day median, so it's not going to, especially in periods of peak demand, it's not going to reflect the actual price that day, but it's going to give you an indication of where the market's sitting at the current time. Yeah, so that's about it for me.
Questions?
I was a bit curious, the Murray-Darling Basin has been a bit of a basket case. I'm just curious how, I understand what's going on with tagged accounts and in the valley trade. I'm just curious that, you touched on it yourself, that it's a decision that only affects farmers who use water. So basically, there'll still be IBT, but the big boys who've got time to sit at their computer and, as you say, just keep pressing enter until they get their trade through. Whereas if you look around the room, whether you're in Zone 7, 1A or wherever you are, how many blokes around here do you reckon are going to sit at their computer to do that? So you're not going to have the ability, and I know that in the past there's been times on July 1 where the inter-valley trade's been taken up the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, also I mentioned there, we'll notice in time's been taken up within 2 minutes.
So I'm just wondering how there's been a decision made, and that first decision I've heard actually affects farmers, not the traders, not the speculators, nobody else. I'm not saying I disagree with it, I'm just curious if they've finally been able to make a decision and it only affects farmers.
Yeah, so going forward and getting closer when that when it does switch over, there'll be a lot more communication about how that'll operate and how you potentially would be able to place an order to get water through your tagged account.
And how is that going to help if somebody else actually just goes through and takes 1A in Zone 7 as a bulk transfer to their own 7 entitlement?
Yeah,
We can do now. I mean, we can go towards the end of the season. You can take from your 1A account into your Zone 7 if there's space. And I've done it before, but I'm just very curious as to how that's going to be managed now, because there's no way that I'm going to be sitting on my computer or have the knowledge that staring at your screen on the water register to see what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what we're working through now, is setting up those rules and then be communicating those so you're aware of how it's going to work going forward. So.
And what are the thoughts on that? What protection are you going to have in there for the little guy?
Well, it's just going to be that everyone's, I'm not sure, we're still working out how an order will be placed and how that will line up with those trays going through that limit.
Some people have been suggesting ballot process rather than quickest finger first. So that might be a way that the state could look at. So, you know, on those IVTs, basically you've got a period where you can submit applications, and then it's just a random ballot, and so speculator isn't trumpeting small areas. I think that would seem like a more fair process, because there's plenty of people that are trying to foil the Murrumbidgee IVT. Basically, computer bot and sitting there to make sure that their email goes through at 10.00000.1 seconds. So that they're first in the queue. I think a ballot process would actually remove a lot of that. And you just know, well, I've got 2 hours to submit my application. It won't be processed until the ballot rolls through.
Yep.
I know it creates more effort for Goulburn Water and the state, but at least it's more fair than big guys doing it all the time.
Yeah, but that's something I'm sure that we'll be communicating as we get closer to it, is how this process will work. So it's clear to you what you'll need to do to be able to compete to get tag use through.
But my concern is that there's this whole water industry created professionals that they are paid full time just to sit there and deal with water. As a farm, you've got a lot of things to do on top of that, and it's a way of trying to create some equity for professionals versus the guys who are actually out there using the water.
Yep, I'll take that on board.